Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the Mouthing Off with Mike Wrestling Podcast, the only wrestling podcast that is part of a balanced daily breakfast. Now, I'm just playing here, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome in to the video debut of Mouthing Off with Mike is All Elite, my AEW All Elite Wrestling recap episode has finally found its way to YouTube. Of course, for my audio podcast listeners, Mouthing Off with Mike Wrestling Podcast, Mouthing Off with Mike is All Elite. Are You Not Sports Entertain? Any of my premium live event pay-per-view specials will always also have an audio episode out there on Spotify, Apple, Google, iHeart, Amazon. The list goes on and on. So without further ado, we are going to jump into the world of AEW. We're going to go through Dynamite, Rampage, and Collision. And of course, you know me, if you've been keeping up with the show, the podcast, you know that I like to end every episode with the final mouth off with Mike. So at the end of the episode, I'll give you my unfiltered thoughts on what's going on in the world of AEW. So sit back, relax, and let's go ahead and hop into Mouthing Off with Mike is All Elite. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome in to Mouthing Off with Mike is All Elite, my AEW recap episode. And we're going to start off with Wednesday Night Dynamite. And as they do like to say, the AEW commentary team, it's Wednesday. You know what that means. We're kicking off Dynamite this week with Orange Cassidy defending his international championship against Claudio Castagnoli. Hey, look, I've tweeted this. I've said this on previous episodes of Mouthing Off with Mike is AEW All Elite. I have said that when Orange Cassidy was holding the international championship, the first reign, Dynamite felt right when he was opening the show with a title defense. So right back into the formula. Now, this AEW Dynamite episode got a lot of slack here on the internet wrestling community across social media. And honestly, it was not that bad as it seemed. There was some really good stuff, and then there was some kind of stuff that just did not hit the way that they wanted it to hit. And that's what wrestling's all about, guys. You're going to go out there, you're going to try something, and it's not always going to work. And that's what the best part about hearing that feedback from the fans, from you and I, to make the product better. The Orange Cassidy Claudio match was a great opener. I enjoyed it. It ended up leading into Orange Cassidy getting a roll-up win to defend his title. After the match, Mox came out. There was a whole bunch of stuff going on. Everybody's vying for Orange Cassidy, the Blackpool Combat Club especially, Jon Moxley especially. But after everything has been said and done, we know that Mox and Orange Cassidy are headed for Full Gear November the 18th from Los Angeles for the title, for the International Championship. And that should be a very interesting match, to say the least. We know Mox beat Orange Cassidy, then Mox lost the title to Phoenix. He was concussed. He's now medically cleared, I hope. And we're going to get part 2 of that feud. The next match that takes place on Dynamite is, in fact, for the Ring of Honor 6-Man Tag Team Championship, which is going to see the Elite, the Young Bucks, and Hangman Adam Page defend their Ring of Honor titles against the Gates of Agony. Now, this was a solid match, but this was more of a story advancement match because Swerve popped up, Hangman was distracted, took his eye off the ball, which led to the Bucks losing the 6-man titles. So the Gates of Agony are now 2-time Ring of Honor 6-man champions, and the Young Bucks were absolutely distraught after the match, with one of them taking a steel chair to the ring post. Now, before we even get there, and the theme of the show for Dynamite was essentially MJF looking for tag team partners. Now, he strayed all across the venue. He interacted with Chris Jericho. He interacted with Jeff Jarrett and that crew. He even had an interaction with Wardlow where Wardlow had him by the throat against the wall, making those threats that Wardlow has his eyes set on that title and MJF. So throughout the show, some break in the action, which was pretty entertaining to say the least. And honestly, most things that have MJF involved are very entertaining on AEW television. Adam Copeland is going to join Sting and Darby at Full Gear against Christian and his new adopted sons, Luchasaurus and Nick Wayne. Now, this is finally after Edge, Adam Copeland, reached his breaking point with the words that Christian was muttering, talking about how he's going to break Edge's neck, Adam's neck. Finally having enough of this and getting a spear in on Christian as well. So very, very good stuff here once again. Like I said, Dynamite was not as half bad as people would like you to convince you it was. Because for me, I said that there were some low spots. And truthfully, the lowest spot for me was Tony Khan's big important announcement, which was just to notify us that tickets for All In 2024 next year go on sale and you can sign up for the pre-sale. Like, yes, that's a big announcement, but in the past, you've had announcements for signings, you've had announcements for tournaments, for titles, for all sorts of different things that really kind of kept in line with that important announcement. I mean, yes, this is an important announcement, but these announcements are going to end up turning into, if they keep going down this path, they're going to turn into essentially the boy who cried wolf, where Tony Khan's going to come out and say, oh, I have this big announcement, tweet it. And then he's going to come out and say, you know, I had Cheerios for breakfast. And people are, really? Did that need to be an announcement? I'm just giving you a very exaggerated example. Obviously, I don't think he's going to come out and say that, but, the case remains definitely out there when it comes to the important announcement scope of things. Daddy Magic, Cool Hand Angelo Parker are going to take on Chris Jericho and Kenny Omega in tag team action. Chris Jericho, Kenny Omega get the match. They win. After the match, it is announced that Paul White, formerly known as The Big Show, well, it's The Big Show. It's one of the top entrance themes out there. Just going to piggyback off that. Chris Jericho, Kenny Omega, Paul White, and Kota Ibushi are going to take on the Don Callis family at Full Gear. Now, when Paul White came out, it looked like he was a little crooked the way he was standing. And, listen, Paul White is a big man. He was a giant. He is a giant still. But at this age, especially when you're that big and you got that much, weight, is it a smart idea to have him taking bumps? I mean, if he gets in the ring and it's just kind of like, he throws the punch, cool. But if he actually gets in there and there's they try to really get him to scrap, I don't know how that's gonna play out. I'm gonna let it play out before I, jump the shark, jump the gun and judge this. But I'm excited as a fan to see Paul White, Big Show, because I love him. It's the nostalgia in me that's like, oh man, that's my childhood. I grew up watching him. But at the same time, I think you could have found somebody else that would have still got that reaction. But I'm happy for Paul White. I'm happy for him. I think it'll be a fine match at Full Gear. Why? And this is in part, somebody tweeted this during Dynamite Wednesday, and I saw it, and I wish I could thank them / give them the credit here, because they pointed out that most AEW women's matches take place around 9:20 Eastern Standard Time to 9:30 Eastern Standard Time on Dynamite. I looked at the clock on Collision. It also happened. It was around 9:23, 9:24 where the ladies made their entrances. What is the deal with that time slot and putting the women in that time slot? Also, I'm going to save it for the final mouth off. I have a couple things I'd like to address when it comes to the women's division in AEW. But what is going on with that time slot for some reason? Willow and Shida are going to have a match for Shida's AEW Women's Championship. Willow loses the match, but she had just lost the number one contenders match the previous Saturday. So, consistency, right? It was a good match. But after the match is kind of, once again, where things progress. We're heading towards Full Gear. Matches are starting to get clear. Looks like Shida and Toni Storm are going to have some beef because Toni Storm has been interrupting her. I love Timeless Toni. She's the best. If I figure out a way to turn this black and white for you as I'm talking about Timeless Tony, I totally will, because it fits her whole character. And if you're talking about Timeless Tony, you got to talk in black and white. Every time she's on the screen, they filter it, and it's just super funny. That 1900s, actress vibe. It's absurd. It's larger than life, and it's professional wrestling. So I love it. I think this is going to be very, very, very fun if they head to that direction. Now, once again, the whole overarching theme of Dynamite tonight was MJF trying to find 3 men to tag with him to take on Bullet Club Gold so he could retain the Triple B, the AEW World Championship. After numerous attempts and numerous locker room visits, even almost getting choked by Wardlow, it has been decided and accepted that he will team with the Acclaim. So, ladies and gentlemen, get your scissors out and let's scissor for the Acclaimed and MJF, because this was super fun. MJF begrudgingly takes the trash bag from Max Caster, which has MJF/Acclaim collab gear. We've got the pink Burberry scarf. We've got the Scissor Me t-shirt. MJF ends up scissoring with them after the match. Now, they do lose the match. Jay White pins MJF, and they're able to hold on to MJF's belt. So I like this whole storyline. We still haven't got a playoff on who the devil is that we've seen a few times, most notably when they attacked Bullet Club Gold and Jay White, and then we've seen them pop up here and there. My theory is this. If they haven't revealed who it is, I'm leaning about 75% that the hidden devil is somebody who they can't unveil yet due to maybe some 90-day no-compete clauses. I don't know, but usually at this point, we would have a reveal or we would have an indication of who it is. Now, this could be a massive swerve and it's just MJF himself, or it's somebody else entirely. Or, Tony doesn't want to reveal it until Full Gear. Either one, super fun. After the match, Bullet Club Gold attacks. They go to hit MJF with the title. Max Caster grabs him out of the way, takes the shots, and then they scissor to end Dynamite. Now, listen, like I said, Dynamite got a lot of slack this week. It was not as bad as people would tell you it was. It was a fun show. There were low spots, yes. But a lot of it was story advancement, and people complained about, stories not being built in AEW, and there's a few different stories. I'd like to see more from the ladies, and I'll talk more about that later on in the show. I'm going to transition here into Rampage, and Rampage was really good this week because we got some Lucha Lusciousness. We are going to have a full-blown Rampage. I'd shake the desk, but I really don't want to give you guys, some sort of spaz moment here. Anywho, we're going to kick off Rampage with the AAA Mega Champion El Hijo del Vikingo taking on Penta El Zero Miedo, taking on AAA World Cruiserweight Champion Commander. And what I have billed, and if you steal it from me, we're going to have some beef. We're going to settle it in the ring. Lucha Lusciousness, because man, oh man, if there's one thing Tony Khan can book for a Rampage, is a damn good luchador wrestling match, man. We got some good old lucha libre here. These guys did things that I didn't think were humanly impossible. Trust me when I say this was a match that I'd go out of my way and rewatch because it was that damn good. Penta El Zero Miedo gets the win in, like I said, Lucha Lusciousness. Go out there, mouthing off with Mike. Match recommendation of the week from the AEW side. This was a fun match. The Guns, Austin and Colton Gunn, taking on Christopher Daniels and Matt Sydal. Listen, I love me some Matt Sydal, formerly known as Evan Bourne. They get the win, the Guns. Fun little tag match. Nothing really more to it. A wild Danhausen appears on Rampage, but he makes the declaration that, no, he's not back. He'll be back next Wednesday. So, yes, We love him. I love him here, man. I absolutely love Danhausen. He is so freaking funny. If it wasn't for my good brother Keith, who showed me him when he was back in the indie scene, back with Ring of Honor, I would have never known about him in AEW when he signed officially with AEW. I was so happy for him. He's so entertaining, and I cannot wait to see, now that he's back from injury, what is next for Danhausen. So make sure you don't get cursed. Nina Shafir is going to take on Sky Blue. A little awkward match here between the two ladies. They don't have great chemistry yet. I'm sure it'll develop, once they get a couple matches together under the belt. Sky Blue gets the win with Code Blue. Definitely not the best match on Rampage, but certainly wasn't the worst. They definitely just got to work on the chemistry. The main event of Rampage was a great singles match, great showing for Daniel Garcia and Trent Beretta. A great overall match. Daniel Garcia gets a big win here. Look, he was super, super duper crowd reaction. He was over as hell. The dance that he does is over as hell. And then they just kind of stalled him out for the last couple months, which just kind of made me a little sad. He's a super young, bright star on the AEW roster, but in part to this match and his promo after, it sets up a world title match against MJF for Dynamite next Wednesday. Let me tell you something. Dynamite next week looks pretty damn good. I'll touch on it in the final mouth off, but looks really, really freaking good after some of the matches that we see in Collision get announced. And you know what they say, ladies and gentlemen, Saturday night's all right for fighting. We're going to get into Collision. Hey, you know what they say, Saturday night's all right for fighting. We've got AEW Collision. We open up the show with the classic promo format, but as Swerve Strickland is doing his promo, AR Fox interrupts him, gets the attack started early. AR Fox and Swerve open up Collision with a collision, honestly. It was a great-ass match. Swerve is too good in the ring. AR Fox also extremely talented. This was a good match. Swerve was able to get the win, and after the match, we get a massive brawl with all of the tag teams involved in the main event tonight on Collision. The Kingdom win a tag team match. I love to see the Kingdom. Roddy Strong with the neck health. He's yelling out, Dasha, Dasha, the ring announcer. We didn't hear an Adam tonight. But talking about neck health, always funny stuff when it comes to Roddy Strong and the Kingdom. Lance Archer. Oh, I love me some Lance Archer. I wish they would use him more, and it looks like they are. Lance Archer does not beat Darby Allin, but he almost ends his career with a chokeslam on the apron that absolutely looked vicious, ladies and gentlemen. What a move. Go out, go check that clip out if you haven't seen it. That was intense. After the match, Jake the Snake, who was back on our TVs, and I do love Jake the Snake. If you watched my Spooky Season series, episode 1 was all about Jake the Snake. One of the best to ever do it. One of the best wrestling minds in the business still to this day. So use his mind while he's here. The Righteous, it seems, have joined with Jake the Snake and Lance Archer to create a new group, and I think this group has some serious potential if they don't push it to the back burner. If you get Lance Archer as like one of the most dominant singles guys out right now, you book him as such, you get the Righteous with the psychological games that they play, with their whole gimmick and everything, you pair that up, and then you get one of the best psychological wrestlers in the game, Jake the Snake. You instill some of that knowledge into these guys. The sky is the limit. I have high hopes for this, and I really hope in a couple weeks, maybe a month, I'm telling you, look how good this group is, because I think it has serious potential. Ladies and gentlemen, I want to give you a quick shout out here. Happy 69 Day, as For the Acclaimed have finally reached 69 days as the Trios champions, and we get an awesome celebration. We've got 69 balloons. Everybody's scissoring, get your scissors out, scissor. We're talking daddy ass might go into the crowd in 69. Everyone, it was so ridiculous, so over the top. And how did we add more of that to it? We brought on out Dalton Castle and the boys, who end up breaking the 69 trophy, which sets up an impromptu match for the trios title, which the Acclaimed retain. Honestly, you could run a story with Dalton Castle and the boys in the Acclaimed. It would probably be one of the more hysterical things that you'll see on AEW television programming. Give me some more Dalton Castle on AEW, Dynamite, Rampage. He always pops up, Collision, Rampage. Throw him on Dynamite a couple times. Let's get these guys transitioning from Ring of Honor to AEW, and the guys that, maybe you're not, too keen on yet, or like they have to prove themselves, send them to Ring of Honor. There's a ton of women in Ring of Honor that I'd love to see brought to the AEW women's division to really fortify it, bring it all together. Athena, Billy Starks, right off the top of my head. Mercedes Martinez Diamante, also right off the top of my head. So I'd love to see it happen again. Mark Briscoe, there's some fun promos backstage. I love Mark Briscoe. I love the Briscoes. Rest in peace to Jay. I love everything about him. He's just so real. He's just himself, man. He finds some tag team partners to take on Kip Sabian and the Workhorsemen. Those tag team partners are the Natural Dustin Rhodes and Limitless Keith Lee. Now, I have to say, Keith Lee looking in real good shape. Looks like he trimmed down a little bit. Looked great in this match. It does after the match. A couple matches later, there's a backstage interaction between Samoa Joe, who is now the longest reigning Ring of Honor World Television Champion. So round of applause for Samoa Joe. I love me some Samoa Joe. But we are going to get next Wednesday on Dynamite for that Ring of Honor World Television Championship, Samoa Joe defending against Keith Lee. And oh, baby, get ready, because sound the alarms, because it is your mouthing off with Mike meaty man moment, because we are going to be bumping meat and bumping chest, and we are going to get our meat beat this Wednesday when these two colossals lock up for the Ring of Honor World Television Championship. I'm excited. Get the Big E clip in here. I love big meaty men bumping meat when it comes to professional wrestling, you sickos. Listen, Collision was fun, man. Saturday Night Wrestling, it's hit or miss. You got a lot of stuff going on in college football, but I had fun watching it. Emi Sakura takes on Willow. Willow gets the win. Once again, this match actually aired at 9:23 Eastern Standard Time. The entrances hit. So I don't know what it is with that time slot, but they constantly get booked in it. Someone may have noticed this, and they're going to end up switching the time slot because someone's finally mentioning it. Some people on social media have as well. The main event of Collision is a chaotic 8-man tag team match. Ricky Starks, Big Bill, Gates of Agony taking on LFI and FTR. Fun 8-man tag match. A lot of chaos here. FTR and LFI get the win. And after the match, the House of Black come for FTR. But the unlikely duo of Claudio Castagnoli and Wheeler Yuta make the save. So probably going to be setting up for 6-man tag action, maybe another 8-man tag match next week on Collision, possibly a tag team match on Dynamite. But the Dynamite card next week looks good. I'm excited to see what Collision looks good. Collision was a pretty solid show. It was entertaining for 2 hours. Wasn't as talked about as Dynamite was this week, but a solid show nonetheless. When I come back, we are going to dive into my All Elite exclusive Final Mouth Off with Mike. So stay tuned. Welcome back into Mouthing Off with Mike is All Elite, my AEW recap episode. And if you've stuck around this long, you know it's time for the Final Mouth Off with Mike. And this week's Final Mouth Off, I have a couple things I want to talk about. There are 5 things that I want to address. I'm going to start off with the announcement that Ric Flair has signed a multi-year deal to be the energy drink sponsor of AEW, potentially, keeping him around for a couple years in AEW. Very strange to say the least. I mean, if it's for the energy drink, sure, so be it. I'm cool with it. It's a product. there's a little bit of hypocrisy going around. A lot of people kind of mixed on this. I am mixed as well. You didn't really need Ric Flair, but if Sting is retiring, which we know was announced by Sting himself, and Sting wants to ride it out with Ric Flair, a good friend, the guy who broke him into the business, then so be it. That's a personal request for Sting. Who are we to say anything about it? As long as Ric Flair doesn't start to take away and, the spotlight ends up being on him, or he tries to get in the ring for a match, because I really don't want to see that. God forbid, I don't want to see the man, in a wrestling ring on live television or on a pay-per-view. So here's hoping he stays out of the ring, and let's just see what he brings to AEW. The other thing I want to talk about is AEW, Tony Khan. It seems very much that over the last couple of weeks, he's been very focused on what's going on across the world over in WWE. I think big thing that needs to happen here, and obviously I don't know what goes on behind the scenes, but I think we just need to go back to the basics, go back to what made AEW unique back in 2019, back in 2020, and just go back to basics. Hit the reset switch, maybe send some people to Ring of Honor, maybe bring some Ring of Honor people up, maybe alter the way things are kind of progressing, because it seems that that's constantly in the back of Tony's mind. So I'd like to see that kind of fall off a little bit. Find that unique thing that AEW is bringing to professional wrestling. Now, they're still bringing great matches and some great entertainment as well, but at times it seems that they're preoccupied with other things. And then there's parts where sometimes wrestlers are super hot. Daniel Garcia, case in point, and then it's falls off for a few months. The momentum, it's kind of like up and down. It happens. It's happened numerous times in WWE. I've stopped watching WWE for it. AEW's only been around for 4 years, so I'm never going to be super hypercritical about it. But at the same time, they definitely need to shift focus and really focus on their product, because they have some of the best wrestlers, best sports entertainers across both women, men's divisions, tag divisions, all of the above. So focus on what you got here, not what's going on over on the other side. Speaking of the other side, we've seen a lot of transition and a lot of progress when it comes to the main roster women's division. The AEW women's division seems that it is in the other effect, where we're getting one women's match, one women's interaction per show, per week. They're in similar time slots each show, or weekly with Dynamite. There are so many talented women, and Tony did book a new woman for AEW Dynamite next week. We're going to see Red Velvet back in the fold. She's going to take on Julia Hart, who's been out of action for about a month. She got married, and I believe they were on their honeymoon, so congratulations to her and her husband. But now we need to shift focus for the women's division, and this is a message to Tony. If Tony, ever see this, please get that women's division up and running, because you have some of the most premier women in the world. Toni Storm, Hikaru Shida, Rio, Britt Baker, Red Velvet, Julia Hart, Sky Blue, Willow Nightingale, Marina Shafir. Over in Ring of Honor, you have Athena, Billy Starks, Mercedes Martinez, Diamante, Nyla Rose. There are a lot of women. I can keep going. I could probably list all of the women, given the chance, given the time. I could list all of the women that have not been utilized, or they've been utilized and then they're forgotten about, or they're shifted to Ring of Honor. Get that women's division pumping. There's no reason why you can't have 2 matches on Dynamite, maybe 1 or 2 on Rampage. Obviously, it's an hour show, so it's a little bit different. Collision, same thing, 2 matches. You have so many women. We've seen some good women's interactions. We've seen some good story progressions with the women, most notably with Sky Blue, Willow, Julia Hart, the whole Miss thing. Willow was able to overcome it. Sky Blue still shows the effects. Her attitude is definitely shifted, but she's not full-on joined the House of Black yet. She actually spit blue mist in Julia's eyes this week. So the women's division totally needs to be fleshed out a little bit better, and that's something that I'll always bring up and I'll always point out, even with WWE. If Shawn Michaels can book 5 women's matches on a 2-hour show, Triple H, he's trying to up the women's division on Raw and SmackDown. I see it starting to flesh out. We just had a fatal 5-way at Crown Jewel. We had 2 women's matches in Saudi Arabia. So there's no excuses for either company, and especially right now where there's so many women and the women are starting to come and become more outspoken about it. What needs to change? They're talking about, we want some opportunities. So let's give it to them because you have some of the best women in the world. I touched on it earlier. I'm not going to dive too much into it. The thing with the big announcements, Tony Khan has an announcement. This week's announcement totally could have been a tweet, a press release, could have been something Tony Schiavone said on commentary, could have been something that was just a real quick backstage thing. Didn't need to have this whole big announcement thing. Save those big announcements for big announcements, or you're going to end up turning into the boy who cried wolf. So, ladies and gentlemen, there is AEW this week. Like I said, I had a lot to say. Just wanted to get off. And listen, I'm not a hater of AEW. Obviously, I watched WWE growing up. That was the only thing we had. Of course, TNA, but you always lean more towards WWE. I stopped watching WWE for a long time. I've been with AEW since the beginning. I was at the very first Double or Nothing in 2019, saw Cody versus Dustin, saw the throne being broken, saw some fantastic professional wrestling, saw the debut of Jon Moxley. I'm a fan of AEW. And this is really all just about wanting to see it flourish and thrive because competition is great for professional wrestling. It's even better for you and I, the fans, because it's more wrestling. So if you want more of that sports entertainment, you're going to watch WWE. If you want to see some more in-ring focused action, you're going to watch AEW. You're going to watch Impact, where it's like there's still entertainment angles run on both, but you're going to get more meat and potatoes, where kind of with WWE, you're going to get a little bit of everything. So don't think I'm just hypercritical. I just noticed that there's these things that are lacking, and I'm a fan. So I have no idea, the ins and the outs of them. It's just what I'd like to see as a fan. Really would love to see a brighter light shined on the AEW women's division, the Ring of Honor women's division. That's really the final mouth off. Thank you guys so much for listening, for watching to my Crown Jewel prediction video, my Crown Jewel recap audio episode and visual episode that is on YouTube as of Saturday night. You'll see it probably in conjunction with this, which you'll see Sunday morning. So enjoy your cups of coffee. Enjoy football Sunday. I hope you had a great weekend of professional wrestling from both companies. We will be back next week with my weekly recap shows. Those will stick to audio, and I will save the videos for some special occasions. Hopefully run maybe a little Survivor Series. We know how the spooky season series went. We'll give that a redo next October. But maybe we'll run a special video or two for the month of November with Survivor Series in full gear. So keep an eye on my socials at MOWM_podcast. That's across the board. Thank you so much for watching and listening. Go out there and have a great week ahead. Enjoy the wrestling that's going to be forthcoming. And don't forget to mouth off with me on social media. From your host here, Mouthing Off with Mike, I'm signing off. Enjoy pro wrestling. Mouthing Off with Mike.